Hello, Keith again. Today I'm going to talk about the main reasons why research papers are rejected and give some solutions. So the main reasons research papers are rejected before they're sent out for review is you haven't followed the instructions for authors, you've got bad English, it's the wrong journal, and there's no big so what. And the main reasons papers are rejected after they've been sent out to review are you've got an incorrect methodology, the writing is poor, and you're missing so what's throughout the paper. So let's have a look at each of these individually. So first of all, you have to follow the instructions for authors. So in the instructions for authors, you've got instructions on things like what your word count has to be, how many characters you can have in the highlights, how many tables you're allowed, how many figures you're allowed, which font they want you to use, font sizes. There's loads and loads of instructions and you simply have to follow all of them. Print it out and follow it. If you don't do this, you won't be sent out to review. So the second reason is bad English. And what I mean by this is you've got some really terrible grammatical mistakes, or you've got incomplete sentences, and especially if these are in the cover letter, the abstract, or the highlights. Now, if you can't write a cover letter properly, the editor is going to know it's highly unlikely that your paper is going to be written properly. And if your abstract isn't written properly, the same is true there. So you've got to really make sure that your cover letter and your abstract and the start of it looks really good, looks perfect, so that the editor is going to know it's worth sending your paper out to review. Because they don't want to send a paper out to review and all the reviewers are doing is correcting your English. That's not their job. Their job is to assess whether the science is good enough or not. So the next reason you'll be rejected is it's the wrong journal. Journals will say which subject areas they're interested in on their homepage, so please just check that you are submitting it to a journal that wants whatever your research is about. And this helps you as well, because if you send your paper to the wrong journal, it is less likely to be cited because people aren't going to be looking in that journal for your kind of paper. So it works for both you and for the journal that they're sent to the correct journal. And the last one in this section is there's no big so what. Now what I mean here is that it's not immediately obvious to the editor in your cover letter or your abstract what the main interesting finding of your research is. And if there's nothing obviously interesting about your research that you can write about in your cover letter or in your abstract, there's not going to be any interesting research in the paper. So make sure you've got a really strong justification in the cover letter about why someone would be interested in reading your paper, and the same goes for your abstract. So then moving on to why your paper will be rejected after it's been sent out to review because of reviewers' comments. So the first one is incorrect methodology. Any reviewer that your paper will be sent out to for a high impact journal will know what the methodology should be, and they will be looking to see if you've got a poor or incorrect methodology. This is really critical. If your methodology is poor, your results will be poor. They will be untrustworthy. If your results are untrustworthy, everything you're basing your discussion on is untrustworthy. And if the discussion is untrustworthy and the results are untrustworthy, the whole paper is untrustworthy. So it won't be published because it can't be cited. So you've got to be super sure about the methodology. Now, if you've got poor English and a good methodology and the paper's badly written, you'll be rejected. but you can still take it away and improve the English, and you will ultimately be accepted. But it doesn't matter how well your paper is written. If your methodology is poor, you will not get published anywhere, and you will simply have to go away and redo the work with the correct methodology. And lastly, with the methodology, the reviewers will notice a poor methodology, no matter how you try and hide it or use interesting words to cover up what you've done. Any reviewer will find out what you are up to, so please don't even try. The next reason it will be rejected is it's poorly written. So this is different to bad English. I mean, bad English is it's just completely unreadable and it doesn't make sense. What I mean by poorly written is that, say for example, not all of your results are talked about in the discussion, or the discussion is poorly structured, or the figures are hard to interpret. It's just not a well-written paper that makes it easy to read for the reader. And again, I've done another video about this, you can check. And a main thing to stop a paper being poorly written or submitted as poorly written is to do a really rigorous proofread. Again, I've done another video about how to proofread your research paper before you submit it. And I do get told sometimes that it seems like I'm asking for a lot of work to proofread a paper. And for example, I just proofread a paper that I'm resubmitting, and it took me about 5 hours for a 5,000 word paper to do a final proofread. Now, it does take a long time, but you have to do it, or else the reviewers will pick up all of your minor mistakes and you'll have to correct them. But also, if it's not a clearly written document, anyone who is reading it will focus on the fact it's poorly written as opposed to your messages, your research messages, making it less likely for you to be cited. So it is well worth the work. And the last reason your paper will be rejected is it's missing so whats throughout the paper. So you've got your big so what that you need to be immediately obvious. It's like your advert for the paper. But then throughout the paper, when you're making any substantive statement, you have to justify why it's interesting. And you're doing this throughout your discussion. In each subsection of your discussion, you have to show why the subsections are interesting, as well as it being interesting overall. And a lot of this has to do with showing how your study doesn't just replicate previous work, doesn't just do the same thing again and compare it, but builds on it, or challenges it, or changes the way of thinking. So that's what you're looking for with these so whats. So I hope this has helped. If you've got any questions or comments, please leave them below, and like, subscribe, and thank you for your time.